I don't think there is. Early on in my career, I think I wanted to, there's got to be a step 1 to step 2 to step 10 in order to be the CEO or the owner or to be successful at this or that. And what I find is that the very best teaching from those who have been successful have been principles, not steps. It's teaching truth, not tasks.
Okay, Kaj, so you are a very successful guy. You're the CEO of Solex. You're a lawyer. You have an MBA. You've started so many successful companies, ran so many successful companies. I'm sure so many other things. Where does that all start for you? Where did that all begin?
Well, thank you. That's I was very successful. I don't know about that. I think that the journey is, I think I'm always in the journey. And that is what's so enjoyable of whatever I believe success to be for me. And for me, I guess there is no end to that opportunity of becoming successful. I think it's a forever journey. At some point, I realized that. I realized and I accepted the fact that you have to enjoy the process. And if you will enjoy the process, then it always can be some degree of enjoyable. Even if you're having a crappy day, even if you're dealing with very stressful situations, you can get to enjoy the process as a whole. And even in the difficult things, usually it's the other end of them that you look back and you're like, yeah, I totally did that. I nailed that. I got through that even. Even if it wasn't a win, you still get to enjoy that. So yeah, I appreciate that. That compliment. It means a lot to me to try to achieve success. Not so much for anybody else, but in my heart, I want to feel like, yeah, I'm doing the very best I can do. And that did start really young for me. In fact, it was my dad. This is when Oakley glasses, Oakley glasses,
Yeah.
They came on the scene and I was a young kid. And in fact, they started the year I was born. And so I was very young, but I wasn't aware of them getting into the surf side and the skating scene, of which I was probably more on the surf side of the scene in Southern California where I grew up. And I remember getting a magazine and I thought these Oakley glasses with their neon colors were so cool. I was just enamored by them. And I went to my dad and I'm like, Dad, I need these glasses. And he looked at the price tag and they were nearly $100. And that is
$100 for a pair of sunglasses?
Yeah, for somebody who comes from my dad, who was an immigrant from Denmark at a young age and had to go through all of the difficulties of immigrating, of adapting, the culture change, all of those things. There were things that were important, like food and shelter and clothing. And then there were things that weren't important, like Oakley sunglasses, especially at the price point of approaching $100 for a pair of sunglasses. He thought that was the most ridiculous thing. He thought maybe $5 or $6 might be a good spend on a pair of sunglasses if you need to wear them at all. And so the command or the directive to me, I think I was probably around 11 years old at the time. He said, well, yeah, Kai, if you want them, why don't you go earn the money and buy them?
Go get $100.
And so that started my journey, actually. That really started my journey of, I did all the things that little kids do, the lemonade stands and all of those things just to be able to have some play money, toy money. But I remember distinctively, I was approaching my 12th birthday and I really still wanted these Oakley sunglasses. And so we had this little free newspaper that went around and I would go through this newspaper for the city. And there was always a jobs listing. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a job because I'm going to buy my Oakley sunglasses. And so there was a paper route in my neighborhood that opened up. And so I called the phone number. Then you were able to do the paper route at 12 years old. I had just turned 12 years old. And so I basically submitted my application. I'm sure my parents helped me with some of the intricacies of that. But I got the job. It was the job, and it was a 7-day-a-week paper route that I get up early in the morning on the weekends, like 4:45 a.m. Saturday and Sunday. I had to deliver those papers, but then during the week it was right after school, and so I had to get home and get my papers, fold them, put them in my bag, get on my bike, and ride the route. And so I did, and I remember that was my first taste of earning money, real earning independent money.
Yeah.
Right. Not getting an allowance and not doing the lemonade stands, but really getting into, I'm the one responsible to get up or to get home from school, to fold the papers, to put them in my bag, to get on my bike and deliver to the homes that they had to be delivered to. And what I learned, though, from that very first experience was actually there is a business finesse. There are things that I could learn in being a paper boy, that the way I delivered the papers actually gave me an opportunity to earn more money. And the thing that was interesting was if I would deliver the paper to the doorstep versus to the front driveway, when I went around and collected the money, because I also had to go collect money for each of the monthly subscription, I would earn typically a better tip from the person receiving the paper when I delivered it consistently to their doorstep.
Okay.
And so obviously as a paper boy, if anybody's ever been a paper boy before, or paper girl for that matter, irrespective, you learn how to throw the papers from the street level so that they would hit the door and land on the doormat.
Like a backboard.
Yeah, and it worked, and you got really good at that. The thing that I think that early, some of those early lessons were, that my consistent effort would pay off. But I also had to have consistent discipline. There weren't days when you just weren't feeling good that you just didn't do it. Or else you'd lose the job.
They'd find a new paper boy.
Yeah. You had to show up every day, literally every day, 7 days a week. And of course, as a young boy and I did this for, I think, nearly 3 years before I got another job. Obviously, I started to learn the value of money and how compensation levels were different with different opportunities. Because I do remember counting my tip money and what I earned, and it was a Napoleon Dynamite kind of moment.
It's like $1 an hour.
Yes, it was exactly like that. I'm like, that's like $1 an hour. But I was happy to have the opportunity to get the $1 an hour at the time, even though it was arduous, it was difficult, it was sweaty in the middle of summer, it was difficult. Early morning, Saturday and Sunday, when your friends are sleeping in or going off and doing something fun for the weekend, that was challenging. But you learn a lot of lessons when you do difficult things, I think. And that was the first precipice that I can recall in the business side of things that, hey, stick to it consistently, learn what you can learn how to do it better, where the trade is, by doing this better way, you get greater compensation. And so that always was something that I've relied on, looked back on, reflected on, and then tried to apply as you went through, whether it was education or whether it was actually different business ventures. Because not all of them are going to be successful. In fact, the majority of your business ventures, if you go independent, solo, or even with small groups, they're going to fail. But every one of them has something to learn from. There's a lesson to learn in those things.
Yeah.
And I think that's also where, I've done, a little bit more than 10 years of collegiate and post-college grad work. And I think the biggest thing I learned in the various disciplines of studying was the ability to learn. I learned how to learn better through that process. You might learn specific things about this or that, and that's great. And a lot of it's theory, and it's not until you get into the real world situation that you actually have to apply that. Boy, that theory really sucks. That's not at all of what this feels like or looks like. It works in a
textbook.
Yeah, it worked in a textbook, and it is based on different case studies and things like that. And those case studies are real. And you can apply different truths to your current set of facts because of those. But the truth is, the real world has a different timing and a different set of pressures when everything feels like it's on the line. And when everything feels like it's on the line, can you learn in real time what you need to do based on the information you have to make the best decisions you can make? The best thing you can do is your best. The great thing about that is on the other end, whether you win or whether you lose, whether you were successful or whether it was a disaster. On the other side of it, you know you gave it your best effort. You know you applied the very best information, and then you get to learn some more and take that forward to the next challenge and hopefully not make the same mistake twice.
Yeah.
So,
well, I guess that is always the hope, right? That you learn it one time, you burn your hand one time on the stove, and that's the last time that happens.
Yeah,
right?
you definitely, and it's even better when you get to learn from somebody else's. Tony Robbins talks about patterns, learning about patterns, not just patterns in life and seasons of life, but the ability to recognize patterns even in what others do. And that's where the education really was helpful. And the ability to learn how to learn was you learn patterns of learning, ways in which you can pick up information, you can store that information, you can recall that information, and then align bits and pieces of information so that you can apply it to a new set of facts. Every day, everybody's being presented with a new set of facts. And the fascinating thing is they're absolutely unique to that person and that day for that situation. Yes, a lot of people have been through similar things, but everybody's background is unique. Everybody's thought process is unique. Everybody's application of those thoughts to the information they have is unique. And so it's fascinating because you think about it, 8 billion people every day, they wake up and they're presented with an opportunity to apply all of these variables in such a way to either succeed, to coast, to fail, to do nothing, to try and do everything. And every day, that set of reactions actually reverberates and creates a new set of opportunities for the next day. It's fascinating.
That is fascinating. It's like Newton's law. Every reaction has an equal opposite reaction.
Yeah.
And it's cool. I like how you presented it. Like everyone has their own perspective of things. They have their own thought process going through their day. Even if you show up to the same job as your coworker who does the same thing and you do the same thing every single day, because how your inner mind is working and how their inner mind is working, it's a completely different day.
Yeah.
You have the same set of tasks. Maybe they could be roommates. They could live in the same house and drive the same way to work. And it's still a completely different day for those two people.
And I think there's a lot of, when you begin to accept that, right? That everybody has their own set of facts, it enables you the opportunity to try and allow them to be them, right? A lot of us want to, especially in business, right? Because business I spend 80%, I think, at least of my time working with people and their problems, right? When you're dealing with people and their problems, yes, business would be so much easier if everybody just did what I said, right? And we all feel that way, right?
Yeah.
Because we always think that we know.
Our way is the best way.
Until we start to learn that, wait a minute, actually I should be open to what they're seeing and what they're saying and how they feel about the situation. Maybe the reason why there's a rub in this relationship, maybe that rub has to do more with my unwillingness or unopenness to hear and see and understand them than it is for them to see, hear, and understand me. And if I would just take a step back and try and see where they're coming from, they might illuminate a completely new pathway that together we create. And I think that living in the business side of things, where there are opportunities all the time, but being open to the perspectives of the people around us. Now, sometimes time doesn't allow that, right? Sometimes there's so much pressure in the situation that time needs an answer today. But I would venture to say that that is rare. My experience tells me that even when it feels that way, it often is not the case. You do have time to actually consider. You do have time to listen. You do have time to understand. And by taking the time to hear, listen, and understand, you have opportunity to make better decisions going forward. And that's with everything, right? I mean, especially with business, but definitely with relationships.
So this just sparked a question in my mind as you were talking. Earlier, we talked about, you touch the oven once and you don't burn your hand again. You seem to be speaking from experience. Like you seem to have had a moment where you've stepped back and realized, oh, to lead, maybe I need to let someone else make a decision instead of my decision.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that at all? Like that realization you had when you had it?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't think, there have been several moments and several experiences where you interact, but I do remember having, this was early in my career, having a boss, right? My manager that was over me. And I think a lot of us have had these experiences where you've kind of done your very best at something. You were grinding at projects. You were trying to deliver the very best outcome using all of your faculty to get there, only to have your manager either suppress it or take credit for it. Right? And right in front of your face sometimes. And you're like, wait, what a minute. And it seems so petty at the time, right? You don't want to like raise your hand. No, I'm the one.
Put my name on
I'm
that.
the one that did that, right? And you feel taken, you feel hurt, you feel unseen. And I definitely think that those early moments of either being suppressed or where credit didn't appear or didn't feel like it was being given where credit was due, opened the opportunity to say, well, who am I not giving credit to? And then when you start to actually give credit, and you learn this especially not just in management, but when you actually start to learn the skills of leadership, you start to learn that you're just a conductor. Somebody needs to hold the baton and get the music started and make sure the pace is right. But you don't play the flute. You don't play the violin. You don't play the trombone. You don't hit the percussion. There are people who are so good at that. And the best thing the conductor can do is give credit to each of those parts of the symphony that makes the sound so great. Not to turn around and take the bow. Often you see from stage, right? You see the proper conductor etiquette is to, yes, the crowd will cheer when the symphony has finished. But they're cheering the entirety of it. They're not cheering the conductor, and the conductor turns and usually bows or curtsies, right? But the right thing to do is for the conductor to turn and present where it really happened. And that's the orchestra.
Yeah, gesture.
That's the entire group needs to be recognized, and hopefully to the standing ovation, to their standing and bowing or curtsying to the audience, right? And I think in business, that's really what you are trying to do as the CEO or as the owner or as any leadership position. You're trying to win. What does winning look like? Well, you want to solve the puzzles of whatever business venture you're in. I want this product to be the best product it can be and to have actually people exchange money for that product or that service, right? Yeah. Well, that's great when people do actually exchange money because they see value in the product or service. But the real win is in the gratification to the people who produce the product or provide the service. That is where the real win is. That is where all the information sits. And so, being a conductor, I think I learned to appreciate through the different experiences the value of each part of the orchestra that provides the symphony. And I'm not great at it, but I try to remember on a daily basis how great each person is. And then what does it typically become? It becomes a humbling thing that you get to be involved and sit at the front step of such greatness. There's people who deliver genius every day. their genius, their ability to, whether it's they write something amazing or they put a video together that's incredible, or they have an idea that really propels so much enjoyment and fun and enthusiasm in a business. And those are genius moments that really need to be, everybody needs to sit back and go, that is awesome. I'm so glad I was there in that meeting doing that thing or a part of that project. But it's not, you don't just learn only in those, you also learn from the difficulties.
The failures.
The failures. And I've had we've had a lot of failure. Everybody's experienced a lot of challenges, right? And I always soften the term failure for me, just because I don't feel failure as anything unless you stop. Failure is a stopping point. Failure is, I failed. Well, maybe I didn't do it right. Maybe it didn't go right. Maybe the outcome wasn't the outcome I wanted, but I'm going to try again, right? And I'm going to try again. I'm going to try again until I get it right. I'm going to spend more time at it. I'm going to blood, sweat, and tears at this until I figure it out. Now, if you just absolutely stop, then yeah, you failed. That's never, I think, a great place to stay, nor to be, nor should anybody remain there. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't pivot off of that and try and apply what you learned to something in a different way. For instance, I had probably on the business side, on the financial side, devastating blow, right? This was many years ago, where I had saved and invested in 401ks and rental properties and all these things, and I had my entire net worth over time invested in a project. And I'm a bit of a risk taker, right? I don't mind taking risks. I don't mind even having the devastating effects of taking a big risk and having a big disaster because of it. And this certainly was one of those. The thing that was interesting about this disaster that wiped me down to nothing, literally zero in my 401k account, zero in my checking account, zero in my savings account. After working and sweating and saving from $11 an hour on, right? It wiped me out to nothing. It was a reset moment. It was a real check in my life that others were experiencing too in this investment process that I was going through, that just wiped it out. And there was some unscrupulous activity that I was unaware of in the process, and that obviously I became aware of later on. And it was devastating, but I learned incredible lessons from that. The first lesson that I learned was that it's not all over. It's not done. In fact, what can I do? I have all these zeros in all these accounts, and I still got bills to pay. What can I do?
I was just going to say, you were looking at zero and saying this isn't over?
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. It was, there was a couple of days of like, oh my gosh. Like, in fact, going into the investments, like, well, what's the worst case scenario? Well, you lose everything. Okay, yeah, okay. But nobody really goes in there with the lose everything mentality thinking, yeah, but there'll be some signs. I'll get some information. It won't be the rug pulled and all of a sudden you literally do have nothing left. So that was surprising. And in the shock of that surprise, it really, my wife and I and my family, there was a step back moment of saying, okay, what just happened? It wasn't just a punch to the face. It was a punch to the face, a kick to the stomach, a stamp on you when you're down on the ground. You're in the fetal position sort of thing, and you're still getting pounded.
Yeah.
And it really does feel that way. And it is hurtful. And it feels like there was some significant harm that took place. Yeah. But it was one of those moments, and I do remember talking with my wife afterwards, and having this, we're still breathing. We woke up today. We're still pretty young. There's a great roadway ahead of us. So what do we want to do? Not necessarily just what can we do, but what do we want to do? And that shift really started to shift how we saw the entire opportunity. Yes, this was devastating. Yes, it was destructive. And yes, it was going to be hard. And it was going to be a decade plus of difficulty. And it really was. It probably was closer to a 15-year process in my mind. And that's a long time.
Yeah.
Of grinding through all the things you have to learn to get where you want to go. But that propelled, for me to go to law school. It was this clean slate moment of, instead of focusing on everything that was taken from us, it was, okay, this is an absolute clean slate. How do we want to write the next chapter of our life? Right? And it really was, to my wife's everlasting credit, she sat me down and kind of like grab you by the collar sort of experience. And if you know her, she's that type of person. She'll send your eyebrows if you need it, but then she'll also give you the biggest hug in the world if you need it. And at this moment, it was it was close to send your eyebrows, but it was a real grab you by the collar. I wasn't wallowing, but I was just, what do I do? How do I take care of my family? And she said, Kai, you've always, from the very first day I met you, you wanted to go to law school. And the backstory of that was, we got married fairly young, and we started having children right away. We learned great lessons in that, and we're so grateful for those. And once you start having one child, you better have them. If you want a cohesive family, for us, it made sense to have children fairly close together. And so I wasn't even done with a bachelor's degree, and I was earning my $11 an hour in those early days. And to be honest, we qualified for our first townhome. I don't know. I really believe that the underwriter for that loan did not see the numbers correctly. I think he probably thought, or she probably thought, there was an extra zero there somewhere, but there wasn't. It really was one of those situations where, you've learned how to work, and you're learning how to learn. So you do what it takes, right? In those early years. So you go to school full time, you work full time, and then you work the extra part-time job on the side that pays the bills, right? I mean, I remember her babysitting a neighbor's kid for literally $1 an hour.
Oh my gosh.
She was making, enough to pay the water bill in a month. But it was in a time when we needed her to make enough to pay the water bill, because I was already probably sleeping 6 hours a night. There wasn't, outside of going into a very unhealthy situation, literally, on a consistent basis, there wasn't much time left. It wasn't a Monday through Friday. It was every day of the week except for Sunday. Sundays we reserve for a reset and a spiritual bath and reset to try and get your mind right on that front. But what you learned through those steps was that you can learn. And so she, to the story of this devastating event, she grabbed me by the collar and basically said, you wanted to go to law school. Why don't you go to law school? And I was like, whoa, that ship has sailed.
Did you have your MBA at this point?
Yeah. So I had shifted the plan from going to law school, because law school required more time. And I kind of knew, after speaking with some people in an MBA program, that I could do the MBA program full time. I could also continue to work full time. Because I had a family. We had 4 kids that were all they were growing. We needed a place to stay. And so we had worked through an MBA, and that was literally a get up at, leave the house at 7:30 in the morning, come home at 11:30 at night, and you put in those years, and you just kind of grind through that process, and you don't get to remember a lot of those days. Which I think is an absolute blessing in reflection, is that you don't remember those days. I do have fond memories of time with my kids, and I do have fond memories of the learning process. But the core of that I don't remember. But I thought that ship had sailed because I'd gotten my MBA. I'm like, okay, I've done enough. Let's just go. But this was, like I said, a clean slate moment. What do we do? How do we do it? And she goes, God, you don't want to be 65, 75, 85 years old and say, oh, but what if I had learned what I really wanted to learn in law school? So we up and left all of our circumstance, packed our family across the country, and went to law school for 3 years. And it was the most challenging 3 years. I thought I had already been challenged. That was the most challenging 3 years of my educational life, which was awesome because I was older, right? I was an older student. I had been out of school for a little while. I graduated at 40 years old.
Oh my gosh.
I was the second oldest in my class. And then so I'm going to bat with these 20-somethings, right? These mid-20, they're graduating at 24, 25, 26 years old, most of these people. I'm graduating at 40. I'm like their dad, I'm inviting my study group over to our place that we're renting, and my wife's making snacks and stuff like that. It's just a weird setting. But it was an awesome setting, and I do remember the fulfillment of that clean slate moment of going out, going through this grind again, and learning again how to do hard things. Learning again that you can put in 70, 80 hours in a week and enjoy the process, because it's the process that's so fulfilling. It's exhausting. It's tiring. You're worn out. But if you don't have the thing inside your why that's bigger than the thing that you're doing, then yeah, it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be drudgery, and you're just going to maybe even hate every moment. Well, you're probably not doing it, or you're not looking at it the right way. You're not doing the thing that you want to do, or you're not doing it in a way that you should be doing it, that gives you that sense of fulfillment. I do think that you can do very difficult things and in the end, enjoy the process. And so, yeah, clean slate moment. And that propelled. The thing is, it wasn't like, oh, and they lived happily ever after. I actually came out of law school, finishing that law degree, coming back, and I've always loved business. Always wanted to be in the business field and wanted to be entrepreneurial. And I've tried to pursue that. And so I came back and tried to pursue, only to be punched in the face again that this is not easy. Start this business, not easy. Network into consulting, not easy. Having a network of friends already, because I've already been in the business world, and still landing gigs and opportunities, not easy. It just wasn't easy. But what you learn is you don't have a plan B, because you're effectively in plan B. And that was, if everything fails, what are you going to do? Well, clean slate moment, try again. And you're trying again, and that's even difficult. But what I found was that the consistent effort eventually does pay off. But it pays off when you finally stop looking at what is wrong. So they came back, and I really had a hard time finding a consistent business opportunity for over a year and a half after law school.
And this is actively trying to find
it. Actively trying. And I'm doing everything, right? I mean, I'm giving plasma to I'm taking substitute teaching jobs just to pay the bills, so while I try and find my thing. And I remember coming after doing, interview after interview, trying to land a spot just to be able to take care of my family. I remember pulling up into our driveway after what felt like the 100th interview. That was really promising. Again, making it 2, 3, 4 rounds into this, and sitting in my driveway and knowing I have a family inside that place, and they're all depending on me to go make this work. And I sat there and I started to get tears welling up in my eyes of what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And as I thought through that, what am I doing wrong? The thoughts came, well, it's been more than 18 months at this. Do you still have a place for your family? Do they have food on the table? Do they have clothes on their back? Are they getting a good education? Do they have health care? Do we have books to read? Do we have games to play? Do we have time together? And the shift went from, why isn't this working, to, I am so grateful that I have all of this, and I've had all of this time, while I feel like I've been falling apart, trying to make this work. But all of this has been taken care of all along. This has been successful. This is probably going to be the only time in your life where you have spent this much time, quality time, with your family, with your kids, doing things, yes, that don't cost any money because you don't have any money. And that made it so great. And guess what happens? I have this realization of gratitude that I begin to practice in my life. Not that I wasn't grateful for before, but it was this was all-encompassing gratitude. Everywhere I could turn and look, I was grateful for what was the opportunity in front of me, even to be able to try and go and find again a thing that would take care of my family, a business opportunity. Well, it was less than 14 days later, a contract came through, a business opportunity started, and then I started to venture my way into a myriad of business opportunities to the tune of numbers that I had never considered before. And it was that shift in mindset. It was that shift in perspective. It was that accepting the opportunity to be grateful for what you have. It became a very Napoleon Hill sort of thing, if you've ever read Think and Grow Rich, of when you do figure it out, that money and those things will come so fast and furious in so many ways that it'll make your head spin. And it really was that, and has been that way for me. And that way, that has turned, ever since then, my foundation has been gratitude for whatever is in front of me. It might be great. It might be terrible. It might be a person. It might be a thing or a situation. I can go into it with gratitude. And because I go into it with gratitude, everything else has changed for me. Everything has changed. And it has come as a tidal wave in my life of opportunities. And I think that's because all of a sudden I started to see different, the world around me.
My thought now just is, okay, so you had this shift of focus and these opportunities came to you. When did it light bulb for you? Oh, I want to be a CEO. I want to own a company. I want to run a company.
That's really funny because that was long before that.
Oh, wow.
I graduated from my $11 an hour position to what was effectively a $16 an hour position at this company.
And this is all pre-zeros, clean slate.
Pre-MBA, pre-law degree, pre-disaster, pre-everything.
Okay.
I had a meeting with a brand new CEO of a division at a company I was working at in the industry I'm still in. And we were kind of knee to knee. And he was just wanting to get to know me because I was part of this really low level part of this team, but he was doing a great job trying to get to know everybody in the company as he could get to know and understand what assets he had. And he asked me that question. He goes, well, what's your ambition? What do you want to do? What do you want to be? And I remember very confidently and probably obviously very unintelligently said this to this person who has had loads of success, decades of not only financial but business success. I'm knee to knee with this guy, and he asked that question. I say, well, I want to be you. I want to be in that seat. That's the seat I'm going to be in.
Wow. How did he respond?
He just smiled at me and said, okay, good. I said, I'm not here to take your seat. I'm not saying that, but I want to be in that seat someday. Fascinating thing is after, and MBA, after law degree, after some business experiences, I'm sitting with another owner and CEO. And I get asked the same question. Well, what are your goals? What do you want to be? I want to be the CEO of the company. And not only the CEO, I want to own companies.
Oh, wow.
And he, again, smiles at me, kind of like, nice for you. Good. That's a good dream, buddy.
Yeah.
That's a good dream, pal.
Keep going.
You pat me on the head. Okay. But I really did feel that's where I want to be. It's funny. I was going to, I have a very successful uncle who's a lawyer and started his own firm and is named partner in a firm, a rather large firm, who dealt with billion-dollar companies. And he handled major transactions. And obviously that, seeded me early and before law school of wanting to become a lawyer. I thought it was aggrandized what he was able to do. And I was going to law school, and my father is asking me, well, do you look forward to being a part of a firm and maybe being a partner one day? And I said, absolutely not. And he was taken aback, and he goes, well, what? Why are you going to law school, buddy? You're going to go waste your time? And I remember telling him, I said, yeah. He goes, well, don't you remember, Rick, like he took the briefcase, with all this cash, and he was going to close this deal. And it was this, it was then a 9-figure deal that he was closing. And I said, yeah. I said, no, I don't want to. Don't you want to be the lawyer doing that? And I said, no, I don't want to be the lawyer doing that. I want to be the owner hiring the lawyer to do that. That's the thing I'm going for. But I felt like in my learning that in order to be the owner that hires the lawyer to do that, I needed to know what to ask the lawyer and what to expect of that lawyer and what the lawyer should be doing for me, the owner, in order to deploy that the best way possible. Not to micromanage as much as to understand and to learn and to know. You see, my MBA gave me this great theory of how to play the game of business. My law degree gave me the playing field, the rules of the game, of what are the things that what are the boundaries in which you must play in order to execute that theory. And so I've been playing that ever since, and I love playing this game. Oh my gosh, it is so fun.
Enjoying the process.
Enjoying the process. Oh, I'd rather spend my time starting another business and getting another idea out there, or starting a new service or a new project, a new product even, getting that out the door and seeing if we can win the game. Making the best product or the best service at the best price possible, and in this industry I'm in right now, giving the best compensation available, right, to the people who are sharing that product. I love this game. It is so fun to be a part of. And I know that I'm in the right space because I love it so much.
Okay, so then I guess just one more question I have about this whole process is, you are now the guy in the chair. Like, the younger you was like, I want to be in that chair. You are now that guy. Yeah. So put yourself in that room with your younger self, knee to knee, and you're asking him, what do you want to be? And he's saying, I want to be in that chair. What would you tell him to do?
Oh, that is a great question. It's difficult to tell somebody what to do. And because a lot of my mentors, I don't have a lot of living mentors. Most of or they might be living, but they don't give me the time of day, nor have I asked for it. A lot of my mentors come by way of books and learning from their words. I have found that spending $30 on a book or $20 on a book is nearly priceless sometimes when you get the right nugget of information. You see, these people have had life experiences, entire decades worth of learning and growing, and all of a sudden they can find that into a concise book that's 300-400 pages long or 250 pages long, and you get the pleasure, the ease of trying to see patterns, going back to patterns, in that book of their learning compared to some other successful person's learning and experience and execution. And so I've been a real student of as many people as possible to try and learn from them as much as I can. And so I think probably inherent in that is learn as much as you can. Expose yourself and challenge yourself in as many ways as possible. And there's not a time frame for that. I think I'm living proof of that. That I think if I went and got my medical degree at 80, I would be as happy as if I got it at 25 or 30. I think that there is no end to learning. And so if you will open yourself to love learning, you can learn from books, you can learn from experience, you can learn from others' experiences, you can learn from observation, you can learn from study, you can learn from epiphany, right? You're right, having the universe, the divine interaction to present you with ideas that you hadn't thought of before. There's so much learning. So step one, learn, be open to learning, crave learning, love learning, and you will always be a student of the game. Because then I think in the learning, you can love the process, because the process is effectively the opportunity to learn and to grow. I don't think there is, early on in my career, I think I wanted to, there's got to be a step 1 to step 2 to step 10 in order to be the CEO or the owner or to be successful at this or that. And what I find is that the very best teaching from those who have been successful have been principles, not steps. It's teaching truth, not tasks. And therefore, you actually come out on the other end of trying to apply this set of principles or rules, right? Or truths to what? To your set of facts. As we've already established, every day, every person has a new learning opportunity of a set of facts that's unique in all the world, in all of history. Today, you woke up and you have a set of facts in front of you that you get to work with. And they're unique in all of history to the entire world. Not just to you, but to the entire world. But it's because of you that they are unique. And so when you get to apply those principles to that set of unique set of facts today, how will I apply them? What will I apply? I could not apply them at all and just coast and give what the world gives me today.
Live in comfort.
Yeah, or I can learn things or take some of these principles and try and maybe get up earlier. Maybe exercise the way just to I love this principle that so many experienced, successful people have done. And it's this concept of challenging yourself every day. Getting to the point of discomfort, get uncomfortable every day. And if you will, to be honest, I do not. There are days where I'm like, I'm worn. It's hard for me to get uncomfortable today. I just want to sit on the couch and watch TV, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine. I think don't let 2 days go in a row.
One day is okay.
I think every once in a while, give yourself a day. You just might need a day to recover and recoup and sit back and observe. But do that. But don't let 2 days happen. Make that second day challenge yourself that second day. You gave yourself yesterday the day off. Fine. Okay. 1 and 7. Fine. No problem. Don't let today happen. Don't let today happen without you being challenged to some sort of degree of discomfort, of uncomfortableness. So that, what happens when you stack so many uncomfortable days on top of each other? When you've forced yourself to be uncomfortable, whether it's a longer hour grinding at a project, or whether it's getting up early to do something new that you've never done before, to study that thing, or to work out in that way, or to just stick with that, do that uncomfortable thing that you know you have to do. You haven't been wanting to do it because it is so uncomfortable, because it's going to take so much brain power of you to get through the other end of it. But by doing that over and over again, when you're actually presented with external discomfort, this uncomfortable forced upon you, your ability, your mindset, your ability to have the strength to get through it is so much greater, because you're like, I do uncomfortable things every day. Just the fact that it's coming from the exterior, not the interior, doesn't matter. It's still uncomfortable, and I do uncomfortable things. And so you can get to the other end of that really easy. Don't give yourself the excuse of, I tried hard enough today. Give yourself the excuse of, I finished that uncomfortable thing today. Okay, good. Well done.
That reminds me of something. It might have been you that taught me this, something that I learned. It's called a cookie jar, the cookie jar idea or whatever. And basically what it is, you have this jar of cookies, and each cookie is a hard thing that you've accomplished, a hard thing that you've been through, a hard thing that you've done. And so that when you're faced with another hard thing, you refer back to your cookie jar. You say, well, I've done this, so I can handle this.
Yeah, I think that's the David Goggins perspective, right?
Yes.
David Goggins, phenomenal example of doing hard things. And I love his concept that when we think that we've hit our mental limit, right? What is everything, right? I've done everything, right? I can't do anymore. I feel like it's blood, sweat, and tears. And it might very well be, but his experience, and if you've read anything or learned anything from his life, is that he believes that that's the 40% mark. You have 60%
Your blood,
more.
sweat, and tears is 40%.
Yeah, and you have 60% more, but the rest of that amount of achievement is all in here. It's all in the head. It's all mental struggle and strain of saying, I did it, I will do it, I'm going to do it, I'm done with it, right? Because you finished it. So I love that. Yep. So have all those wins. Have that cookie jar of all the wins that say, no, I can do the difficult thing and I will do the difficult thing until it's done.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Thank you for your time today. I guess just how I want to end this, you mentioned your very first thing you recommend to anyone out there that's trying to become this best version of themselves, to be the person in their chair, whatever that chair would be that they want to be in. What should they read? What should they learn? What's your recommendation walking away from this?
That's fantastic. What is the one thing, if there's one thing that you need to have in your corner in order to get where you want to go, I believe that it is gratitude. I think it's grateful for, the simplicity of the mindset of, I'm breathing today. Therefore, I have opportunity today. I'm awake today. I'm alert today. If I can breathe, I can do. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to breathe and to do. So what should I do? Go do it.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for everything you do for Solex and for all of us. We love that.
Yeah, I love that. I love Solex.
But we couldn't tell.
Yeah, I do. I love Solex.
And yeah, again, just thank you for your time today.
Thank you.